Hi, everybody. Val Evans here. Thanks for joining us today. We're talking about the Michael Monkey Vaughn case out of Fruitland, Idaho. There have been some developments, and I have my friends Grace Wilson and Todd Segal with me. Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone.
And what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about the case, what's going on. We'll look at a couple crime charts and I'd like to get the opinions of everybody. We've got different perspectives. Grace, you always have an interesting forensic astrology perspective, and then you just ask these questions that everybody wants to know. And Todd, of course, you've got some great visions. And why don't we start with you before I do an update? You were just talking about something that you were seeing with regard to Michael Vaughn. And of course, he went missing last July. July 27th, 2021, between 6:40 and 7 o'clock in the evening, and he just disappeared. What do you think?
Well, I think Grace had a good point that there's no body, there's no physical body that's brought forward. But I did see when I first started this, a small town pointing fingers at everybody. A lot of, I don't even know
Yeah.
family or anybody could live there because everybody's blaming everybody else and they get a lead, but it almost feels like nothing really sticks or nothing comes to the surface. There's a lot of false claims. That's what I get.
It certainly sounds like that. And we did that initial video, all three of us, with Becca Starfall, who is very intuitive herself. She's in California. She came to me and wanted to cover the case. And there were a couple of things that came out of that first video. And by the way, welcome, Sarah. Thanks for joining us. I'm so sorry we had to delay a little bit, but when we heard Todd could come on, we had to just adjust the time a little bit. And okay. Christina, I'm so sorry that I deleted yesterday's live, but it's up now, so you can take a look at it. But back to the case. Well, this afternoon, they're supposed to be digging up that yard of what was her name? Sarah Wondra, I think. And this woman came forth because, well, we don't know all of the details, but apparently she gave enough information that they arrested her for knowing where Michael Vaughn's body is. So, what do you think about that, Grace? Like, how can you arrest someone? Are we not being told something?
That's a really good question. And I have been pondering that all week because the story that I've heard, and some of this may be rumors. I don't know if all of this is true. I don't have a very good memory for these kind of things. So you guys can let us know in the comments if I got something wrong. But what I've heard is that her husband's in jail and she has a boyfriend who was staying with her, or a male friend. Mm-hmm. And she told him that Stacy had hit Michael and buried him in the backyard. So then this person was the one that called in the tip. Mm-hmm. And then they came and they asked her about it. And she said, no, I don't know anything about it. So that's when they arrested her for not telling them about the body. But again, at that point, they hadn't even looked in the backyard. They arrested her first. So I was thinking, well, okay, they've got her, they're holding her on something. And then when they find the body, then there'll be more charges. But they were there all last week. And
exactly.
And that yard's not that big. And Michael's not that big. And they couldn't have buried him too deep. So what are they looking for? Is my question.
Sarah's saying, have you guys learned about the Wondra's neighbors? I have not.
Yes. So well, the neighbors are the two sex offenders that were listed. And we thought it was their house at first. And
Yes.
all the rumors went out about them. Oh, it's them. Oh, it's them. And I have to admit, I thought it was them too, until we realized it was the next house.
Okay. And interesting too, with actually, did I lose Todd?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. I remember when we were talking first, Todd, the first thing that you said, you thought it was an accident. And but what's really messing this up is that there's sex offenders around. And the other clue that you gave, Todd, was that there was something with a K. And so in that video, we zoom in on King's Bait, which is a business deer there. And wouldn't you know it, where they're digging is just feet of that whole area, that whole region. We actually picked a place that, due to your intuition and from the astrology, it was within feet of where they're digging right now. So I think that gave us a really good clue. But they've been digging all week. It's a small backyard. They've got a big bulldozer. The other thing I was thinking this morning, and I mentioned this to you, Grace, they started today on a Monday because, the police, they want to get started. They want to get this over with. But it was void of course moon this morning. And that usually gives you a very small percentage of success when you do that. So maybe they're going to have to start again. It'll be interesting to see if they actually find anything. But Todd, I was talking to you yesterday, and you don't think they're going to find anything, do you?
Well, I think the people they've pointed fingers at have alibis for that time. So that's what I'm picking up, that they have credible witnesses that they weren't there at that time.
Okay.
That's just one thing I get. I also didn't see a burial personally. I felt that this was out in the bushes or somewhere on the river or something like that. I'm not going to rule out foul play, but I know that, well, first of all, the parents they put endless blame and stuff on the parents. I think there's a little bias there about them. But I'm not feeling it's them, because I just don't see the boy at home.
Okay.
I feel that he left. And then the other thing too is I'm not seeing a car involved, like transportation. There are some, shady people in the area, but I also saw this boy he was a wanderer,
Yeah. Yes. And Sarah wanted to make, and I had forgotten about this, and you're right. She said, you had all said the name Carson 3 months ago. I was blown away when I watched your previous video. And yeah, and that's the chart for you. And we as translators, sometimes we get names, not all of the time. There's, we were talking about Scorpio yesterday, and sometimes there are these Scorpio names like Sinbad. But then you've got a person like Rachel McAdams, and she's a Scorpio. Well, Scorpio represents Irish names. And so you can really kind of get into the weeds there with names. And it's not always, 100%. But it was so interesting that of all of the names that I would use as an example, it would be Carson and Jackson. And the reason I said Carson was because Mercury was, I believe it is aspecting the ascendant. So, and Mercury is a car. So car, and then Leo would be like Carson. So yes, I thought that was really interesting. Thanks, Sarah, for bringing that up. So, and he confirmed during an interview, they had done several things together and spoke fairly frequently. So the question is, if it was an accident and he wandered off, and Todd, you're seeing that you were seeing rocks, lots of rocks.
Yeah.
Grace, you're saying that if he was somewhere, he was moved potentially. I think we should come to an agreement on where we think he is. And I suppose that would be in the elements somewhere. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, the moving part is very possible, or the body moved. I don't, right now I'm getting something of the head blunt force or trauma to the head, mostly.
Yeah, and we saw that in the chart too.
So, I don't know what they've done as far as searching the river and that kind of thing. I feel they have been only looking at people and not areas, and maybe they're looking at areas now. But they looked at areas, I think, with a helicopter, because I saw a helicopter, but they wouldn't find him with a helicopter, not in that area.
No, and not in that little area that you were talking about. It's kind of a hidden part of the river, I think, that we were talking about. And let me just read this real quick. This is the update. A Fruitland woman was arraigned in a Payette County courtroom via Zoom Monday afternoon for failing to report the death of missing Fruitland boy Michael Monkey Vaughn. Sarah Wonder alleged no wrongdoing at her arraignment, saying, "I understand what they've said. It's not correct." She is now being held on a $500,000 bond. Late Monday court records show a judge requested Wondra undergo a mental competency evaluation. I think that's something that Sarah probably read when she was talking about the mental issues. I wonder if they're doing this just to get her to talk about anything else that she might know.
It seems pretty crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I holding her on bond for what? That's very shady as far as I'm concerned. I don't see unless there was some real, if it's just hearsay, that's weird that she would be held, just by words. There has to be some kind of evidence,
Exactly. And so Christine is saying to you, Todd, is Michael in spirit then? And judging from our first video, you were getting things that almost seemed like through his perspective. So
yeah, kids are, it's weird. Kids are naturally open in spirit. They're much more open than adults. So a lot of times when I'm communicating with people on the other side who have gone through tragedies like this, the adults are sometimes quite hard to read. And look, they have to invite me in too. They have to trust me. So it's not like I'm just speaking with a phone to them. They have to, kind of embrace me. One thing I'm feeling that he's communicating to me is a woman who lives on that road who is, I believe, an RN or nurse that might have an opinion that is valid. I don't know why, but I'm feeling across the street, I am getting a number 2, possibly with her address or in her address. And she seems to hear all the scoop from people, but
so trust her. Is that
yeah, so I'm getting some credible witness that might not be saying anything right now. I don't know if she's a witness to what actually happened, but to hearing from other people and all the rumors. It's just tremendous pointing of fingers with everyone. This kid basically went on his own account, I believe, and nobody saw him. And
yeah. Well, Sarah is saying that she thinks that they're digging up the wrong yard, which is interesting. I read somewhere that Sarah W. said that Stacy buried him in the neighbor's backyard. Everyone keeps acting like that was a typo. No one is talking about it. I think they're digging up the wrong yard. That's interesting. I think we could probably see that, Grace, when we look at these charts. Might be something to see if we can see. You can see if a body was changed in a location. And what I'm going to do is just explain what I have up here. We were just talking about this before we went live. I have 640 because it's the beginning of when they couldn't find him. And Grace, she used another time, which is at 7:05 p.m. because, Grace, you want to tell them why you use 7:05?
Sure. Well, when they came out with the information that they had narrowed it down from 6:40 to 7:05. So the latest that he could have left the house, let's say, is 7 o'clock. And, you know, for a little kid like him to get down to the end of that street where that, you know, where the field is and then the street comes across, that wouldn't take, you know, 2-3 minutes. So I figured by 7:05, something was happening to Michael.
Okay.
And when I pulled the chart up, I saw that it was at 0 degrees. And the 0 degree is the beginning of something. And it's 0 Capricorn. So this is ruled by Saturn, which is not a good sign. So that just told me, well, this is the beginning of something bad happening. So I felt like this was a valid chart.
I like this chart. And if you think, though, of a horary and how they say that the 0 degree ascendant is, it shows too soon. Do you disregard that in a crime chart? If it's 0 degrees, is it just timing for you?
Yes. Okay. That only represents timing. That's only if you're asking a question. So,
I like this chart because it seems clear to me. The ascendant, now we could look at Jupiter as being Michael, but also the ascendant itself trines Mars at its conjunct Regulus. So do you think that means that he's going towards something that is Regulus related, like the King's Bait direction?
Yeah, that absolutely could mean that, but it also could mean that this Mars is under the influence of the sun. So it doesn't necessarily mean 2 men, but it just could be that this could be his anger, his speed, but it's sun related to me.
And when you say that, it's because the 8th house is ruled by the sun, so that's that influence from Leo. And Leo can mean like bullies, children, people who are, it even shows like adults when they act petty. I can think of a former president who just talks like a child. It's like an adult that talks like a child. But in Michael's case, yes, he's going somewhere. He's very intent on doing something. And then you have the ascendant squaring Moon and Neptune down there. And I hope everybody can see the chart. But if you pull the crime chart for 7:05 p.m., you can look at it along with us. And the square there, I guess that could be his mom. Like his mom can't find him. But when I see Moon and Neptune, for me, that's a big clue. When the moon is so close to Neptune, it's like a famous body of water. Something everybody knows, that the public knows, that it could be that splash pad, which is what we had said in that first video. So it's like the local splash pad. And then with the sextile between Pluto, Neptune, and the moon, oh God, like that's a lot of Neptune, right? Like, how do you see that?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a sextile, so there was an opportunity because of the 3rd house. And again, the moon is the lost, Neptune is hidden, 3rd house is transportation. For me, this is another indication that he was hit by a car. Okay.
So you and Todd are both thinking that there was an accident. Todd, not so much the car.
Well, when she says that, I do get a vehicle that's not a car, but I get a like a dump truck or something, a hauling truck. Is what I do get. Um, I'm also getting a blind turn. That means a turn coming out of a road going left or right, but the angle of it is just like you really have to look,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So that's what I do get from that, but I'm getting more of a diesel type engine.
I wish I could see Neptune aspecting or better aspecting Uranus, which means broken glass. But I still could look at that Neptune as almost being like a window or somebody's the window of a home because moon is a
Mm,
A
home.
neighbor could have seen it.
Okay.
Could be showing us that.
Yes. Maybe through the window.
it's possible.
Okay. And that I think one of the strongest parts, and we've talked about this before, but that Leo house is just packed with energy. And Leo, of course, means family, children, boyfriend, girlfriend, restaurants, things that are sun related, a peak. So I might think of looking in the area of Leo, but it seemed like it was more towards like the location was more towards the west where there was a river.
By the way, just one little clue. When you were talking about windows, houses,
Mm.
people's houses, I kept getting a vision of somebody that has Tiffany style lamps in their house with the stained glass. So like
Okay.
those stained glass, you know, uh, covers, that kind of thing from a house. I'm getting a lot of antiques and those old style stained glass lamps
That's
from
pretty
some.
wild because look, Grace, where Neptune is, it's like in the second house of assets. So, and then when you trine Mercury, that's kind of like small things. Or like, I don't know about lamps. I guess we'd have to look that one up.
Yeah, I haven't seen them
Well,
in a
the
while, but
moon
you know the
is a
kind.
light.
Yeah.
Yeah, moon is the light. What did you say, Todd?
Yeah, they're they're not unusual, but they were kind of a trend, I would say, in the 1990s. A lot of these stained glass lamps came back
Mhm.
um, to make them look like the Tiffany lamps, you know.
Right. And the moon in this chart represents if there was a perpetrator. So, and it's really close to the cusp, which makes it very strong in the third house. And like you said, that's transportation. It could be a window, could it be a neighborhood home. So we've already established that anyway. Looking at the news, you could get
And
that.
and we have to take into account where it's at. It's at fixed star sheet, which tells us of a great calamity.
Yeah.
That's a very bad indicator when you're looking for the lost and you've got moon on sheet.
And when you said that witness there, that would be Mercury with that trine. Mercury is the witness looking through the window. So
Mhm.
so people know things. I wonder if it's that nurse, and nurse would be Pisces, would be 12th house. Um, what's intriguing to me is the second house. We've been seeing second house lately, and here Saturn is right on the second house. So Saturn could be, Michael, if
It's
there,
in the boot.
what's that?
When Saturn's on the second house, the
Hmm.
body is in the boot of the car. It's been put in the trunk.
Okay, interesting.
So we
Yeah,
can see the
Saturn.
death, then we can see they put him in the boot.
What was this location again? Could you tell me the name of the town?
Yeah, Fruitland, Idaho.
Okay, I'll just want to look at something.
Yeah. So if that's the case, Saturn would be squaring Uranus.
And he is.
And that means change the location
Mhm.
of a body. Uranus in
Mhm.
the fourth would be change it out of the house. I don't
But
know
they're
about
keeping
you.
it out of the boot.
Ah, yeah, good one. The thing though is that we look at North Node and Neptune a lot. Those are things we don't like to see because North Node it shows deception, and so does Neptune.
Okay.
We've got some aspects to that. So it's like, okay, let's look at this chart and see who is not telling the truth.
Okay, let me point something out. The North Node is conjunct Phaethon, which is a car.
Okay.
Okay. And it is right on the cusp of the 5th and 6th house. Now, 5th house, ruled by Leo, also rules addictions. So this kind of makes me think that maybe they were under the influence of drugs.
And the 5th house, is it because it's like recreational stuff?
Mm-hmm.
People do drugs for fun. So it's kind of confusing because you always think of the 12th house.
It's also gambling.
Mm-hmm.
It's any kind of addiction.
The vices.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think that's significant.
Okay.
And then that's in a trine from the 7 up to it goes over to Saturn, which is at the 10th, in the 10th degree. But then when you go up to the 9th house, there is lie at 10 degrees Libra. That's a woman lying to us.
In the news. Who's that woman?
I don't know, because Sarah hasn't been on the news. I mean, she's been in the news. She hasn't been on the news.
Libra is a couple too. So if we haven't seen a couple lying yet, we will see a couple. North Node in Gemini can show a foreign car because North Node is foreign. So that's a possibility. If it was a car, I'm still a little fuzzy on it, but there was an accident and then he was put in a car and then changed to a home. Okay.
Could be.
Okay. Anything we're seeing as far as someone attacking Michael, assaulting him, or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we look at the sun, and we can see, excuse me, the vertex conjunct the sun at the 6th degree. Now, at the 9th degree, we have a stellium of, and I'm only bringing it up. Usually I keep my orbs very tight, but it's the sun. It's the brightest star in our solar system. So we give it a wider orb. So I'm willing to go 5 degrees either way, which means that not only is Mercury conjunct, we've also got the vertex and this trio, or this
your mic is crackling a little bit. I think it's okay. I think it's just it might be just the movement. It might be sensitive to movement.
Okay, so what we have there is Sarah, the personal name asteroid Sarah, and the personal name asteroid Michael, and the personal the asteroid Dearest, which means to stop, and then the asteroid Happy, which means to ambush. So I feel like there was an accident involving a car, but I'm not ruling out that maybe he wasn't hit by the car, but perhaps something happened in the car. Like he could have been kidnapped and thrown in the trunk of a vehicle. And then they got him where he needed to be, but something had happened.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm not ruling out.
Because it certainly showed. Yeah, go ahead.
Because we have the part of fatality is also conjunct the sun. So in all of that mess, the sun, who's that? That's somebody, plus Michael is at the 29 degree, which is the end. So he's at the end, and then the sun, and then the vertex, which is the turning point or the point of no return. And then we've got Sarah and Michael and Dearest and Hobby. So there are signs of an attack, but whether it just means an attack because they couldn't see him, because if it's as Todd says, and it was a big truck, then they would have, still put him in the back. But it would be so hard to see a little bitty guy, especially if he just darts out into the road.
Sometimes I look at Black Moon Lilith as a perpetrator, and there's dark energy. It's Plutonian. And since it's in Mercury, that's transportation, and it's also to people. So I think, to narrow things down, we are talking about potentially a couple, potentially two people. And it's just hard to tell. Like, where did he run? Todd, where do you think he ran first? He was running through the field, they say.
Well, I think I remember him showing up at a house and just looking at houses that might have other kids to play with.
He need a toy in his hand.
Yeah, and just kept walking, and then all of a sudden going rogue, going to a field. But every time I concentrate on him or I focus on him, he keeps showing me water.
Is there a possibility that he fell into a well?
I'm not getting a deep thing. I'm seeing like moonlight at night, like shining on water. That's,
That shows right here in the chart in the third house.
Yeah. For me, the 29th degree in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, which rules the tides, and knowing that he was moved, and that usually shows up when you're changing one sign from another. So I would say that he is on the edge of water.
Yeah. Jupiter at 0 degrees in Pisces.
I just saw like water snakes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Aquarius is a water, well, it's an air sign, but it's a water bearer. So something to always keep in mind. It could be land, it could be water. But I also think with Saturn, and we said this in the first video, that Saturn in Aquarius can mean like crunched up rocks. It can also mean an old airport too, because Saturn is old. Aquarius is things up in the air and airports. So I can't imagine he ran near an airport, but maybe that has something to do. It could be Airport Road, something that has to do with the air in the second house.
And whichever scenario plays out, I mean, I'm not ruling out that it could have. I felt like the whole thing was accidental. I just don't see a planned abduction or anything like that. So it's very possible it's accidental. It's possible they could have thrown him off to the side of the river or something. I get that day, it's kind of a weird feeling. I almost feel like people are doing things that they wouldn't normally do that day. I know it sounds strange, but it's almost like they were overcome by their thoughts, their feelings. So if somebody hit him and said, "Oh my God, I don't have insurance. I'm not a good standing citizen. I've got to, I'll be blamed for this." They could have, hidden the body and just taken off,
Sure. Well, what we're looking at right now is the 2022 solar chart for the crime chart. And we've been looking at these lately, and this is the solar chart only. And I think it's interesting because you see a stellium there. If you were to look at Mars as the police, you could look at Aries too, but this started in July. So last July through this next July. This is how the personality of this crime is going to change. I see a lot of problems with the police. And I also see that North Node there is like deception around the police, deception that has to do with the evidence. They're going to have some challenges. Do you see that, Grace?
Well, yeah, because it's exactly conjunct Uranus, so it will come up suddenly.
And it's a huge shock. Something will be a huge shock. But if you were to look at Saturn in the 11th house as a body, it sure looks like they're having trouble finding the body. This is a T-square with Mercury. And sometimes I look at charts and for a little boy, I would look at Mercury. So, and in Leo, it makes sense. It's like a child. So to me, it doesn't look like they're going to have an easy time finding him from this chart. It's also foreign energy too. Uranus is foreign, like foreign things, foreign names. And then
That's interesting you said that, because when I was thinking of a truck, I was thinking of somebody who, might have a language other than English.
Yes, maybe a foreign language. In Taurus, I'm not sure what that would be. Maybe a farmer or something. I don't know.
Also, another note is across the river is where if there was somebody involved in this, I don't think it's from Fruitland, but across the river, I think it's called Ontario. I mean, it would be on the Oregon side.
Okay.
So that's one place that I'm going.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Or drawn to.
So look at Pluto opposite Moon, which is conjunct the Sun. That's a big fall for somebody, for a couple.
Absolutely. And
Big
Moon
fall.
is right at the end. That's the Gandanta area where it goes from like water to fire. And, that's a tragedy of some sort or a downfall. Yeah, good catch. I wonder what that's going to be about. Then, so you're hoping that they find Michael, but it sure looks like there's a delay. There's a sextile, though, to that Venus there. Venus is Plutonian in nature because of Black Moon Lilith, right on the fourth cusp. Now, is this what we're seeing, I wonder, where this woman is giving information? She lives in a home, or she lives in the neighborhood, which is really third house, but and there's, what would you say Black Moon Lilith could manifest in this? I wonder if it could be
That's someone who's willing to break the law.
Yes, like a dark female. Like if you were to really make it simple, a dark female who's talking to the police. Yeah. Now, and then, you step back and you look at the chart itself and there's a big X. And what do we usually say when we see a big X? That's never a good sign. You might as well cross this year out. Let's get to the next year. So I don't know. It does not look like there's a lot of success, except we have part of fortune in the first house. And it's in Aries. So there's going to be something that's going to come up. Uranus is also evidence too. So they might start seeing some evidence. So maybe this year till next July, they'll gather some evidence. Maybe they will talk to some people who speak a foreign language. It could be a police officer with a foreign name, like, Martinez or something, and he suddenly comes into the scene. And I also wonder, and this is my last point, and then I'll let you go, but the ascendant trining Mercury. That's like the family is talking. The family will be talking all this year. But they can't, they're because of that opposition with Saturn, it's almost like they're stopped. And you know what that is? That's the YouTubers, I'll bet. They're like,
I bet.
they're like, sorry, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to
Yep.
hear it. So
Yep.
you can talk all you want. That's interesting.
I have no problem with people trying to figure out who did it. I've been doing that since 2008 on web sleuths. But where I think that they're going wrong is by actively going out there and interfering,
Yes. With the investigation.
interviewing people and protesting and, publicly saying things like, oh, I think the mother did it. I think the father did it. Like, we can say that perhaps there's some involvement with a male and a female, but there's no way that we can say for sure with what we know from the police and what we've been told by the family who did it. There's just no way to know. So I just don't think they're doing themselves a big disservice, because eventually nobody's going to listen to them. They're going to jump the gun too quickly, and they're going to end up getting somebody killed.
Yeah, and they don't have a body, like you said, and I've come across this in many investigations. And one thing, I'm an outdoors person, so I've spent my life out in the woods, along rivers. I've spent my life outdoors. They have not spent enough time searching, or they've searched the wrong places. So exactly what Grace said is that all they're doing is pointing fingers, and it's very dangerous. They have to come up with the body. And, tracking dogs, even cadaver dogs, might be useless at this point because of the time that's happened. Also, let's say the boy is on the river. He's very small too, right? So, there's a lot of decay and stuff on the river, and it will make it very hard for them to search. But the right people could make a difference in this. I just feel like they haven't really searched.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about the search, so I'm sure there are people who have searched tirelessly. That's a possibility. We don't know, at least I don't know. But with Saturn in the 11th house, that is the body. Okay, and that's where Saturn is going to be from July to this July 2023, and that's where he's in the 11th house of the community. He's in the community. He's close, I think. And look at Mars, they're squaring the body. They can't get to him. So that would support where they're either trying or they're not finding the right place, or they're not trying, like you said, hard enough. But what's really intriguing with this chart, if I want to have a final point with this, is the sextile with the ascendant, and it's in Aries. So could that be a rogue police officer going to find him? Could that be, I guess I'd have to look at the degree there, but
could it be 23?
Is it 23? Could it be like a military guy that finds him? I think that there is a possibility that somebody is going to find Michael.
I get a farmer.
A farmer. Okay. That would be Taurus.
Sure would.
Okay. So if he's near a river and a farm, we need to find a farm near a river. And I think there are some.
That's going to be so hard in Idaho.
Yes.
Well, I think to myself that a lot of it's like state land. So what is it? The Snake River?
Snake River.
So, and snake, what is snake? Snake is North Node. That's Rahu, the head of the snake. So that could be snake. I would want to see some kind of a
And
water.
Sinistra on the AC of the crime chart, that's a snake.
Oh, interesting.
And I mentioned snakes before.
Yes. Okay. I just wish I could see a combination.
Snake hole.
Well, with Uranus in Taurus, that's like where a farm splits in two. So I don't know. And you might be able to get there from, you see the MC, that trine, you might be able to get there from a public access road or something. So anyway, it's interesting. Any parting thoughts? I think we covered a lot here.
I don't have any.
No.
I think it's still going to be a little while before we know what really happens. And
Yeah.
I agree with you and Todd. I think there's just a lot of finger pointing and lies being told right now, and they're going to have to shuffle through the.
Yeah.
I also think that the digging up of yards, my feeling, I could be wrong. I just don't think it's going to turn up anything.
Okay. And yeah, we've got Christina. Sorry, guys, we forgot about the comments. They're wasting their time in that backyard. Wonders have nothing to do with this. And she also says they need to check for landscapers' buildings in the neighborhood that day. A couple of illegals may have hit him, and they may have been high drinking. The woman may have hired them, and she may suspect. And
yeah, Christina's could be right.
Yeah, and so that would be one scenario if somebody didn't or was afraid, being in a foreign country, of what might happen if they report something. So I think
we all know. Okay, even in Virginia here, I remember I was out on my motorcycle one day and almost hit by a dump truck. Dump truck just came barreling out. Did not even bother to stop, and here I am going 50 miles per hour on the grass, looking at him like, "Hey, buddy, you're not looking at me." A lot of industrial truckers or trucks, they are given jobs with people that are very underqualified to drive them. That's just a rumor I've heard among construction people.
Yeah.
But you got a lot of farms. You probably have hired people. They probably could be illegal, and they just want the work done. They're probably not looking at who's qualified or not. And an accident could have happened very easily that way. And look, if an illegal hit him, they are not going to be an honest person to report it because they're going to be sent back to their country.
Yeah, it is a very difficult situation for them. And Christina says that this is interesting. Another psychic said he was kidnapped by a woman. I think there is that theme, though. There's that female.
I think there's a woman involved, and we've said that before. We said that on our first show about it.
And you did.
And then it came out that
Sarah says, yeah, go ahead.
Dorothy, you were asking. One name that came to me was Andrea. I don't know why, but a letter A, and it sounded like Andrea.
Okay. Sarah and Stacy.
I'm not comfortable with putting Carson's and Stacy or Carson's and Dorothy's names out in public in these charts pointing to anything because we don't know. The only thing we've been told is about Sarah and Stacy. That's all we know at this point. And I'm not even saying that they did it. I'm just showing you where the asteroids are. So yeah, I you can plug that in yourself and try to figure it out. But and again, we're saying that it could be them, but it also could just mean that they were around.
Well, that's the thing. I was about to say.
They live in the neighborhood, so it could not be these. We could get hit out of left field and then say, oh, it was a foreign man in a dump truck that hit him, and then just put him in a dumpster.
Exactly.
We don't know.
These charts are the personality of the crime, who is going to come in, who even might be falsely accused by the 11th house people.
Exactly.
Like the online community, the mean community, Saturn and 11th, mean community. So, when we say certain names, it might be those people who they might come out and they might talk in the news if they're in the 9th house. There might be a lot of the public might, if you have moon squaring that name, the public just hates that person and or they're not listening to that person. So yes, there's a lot of different dynamics that go into these charts. So and then
it's
Colleen
not
said,
just to get actual facts that we can see in the chart where it is. Until we get all the facts, we can only look at possibilities. And then we fill in the holes with the facts. But
now Colleen says Sarah and Stacy have another house. The yard should be digging yard. It's a greenhouse on the street M. That's interesting. A greenhouse. That would be where plants are, and that's Taurus. So that's
Taurus rules the color green.
We might see greenhouse in the news.
Yeah,
and then let's see, what else do I have? And then Sarah says, so they own 2 houses. I don't know. I don't know for a fact if they own the 2 houses. In the beginning, I think it was said that they did. So, okay. Christina says they need to check for the landscapers, builders. Okay, I already did that one. And then, oh yes, Sarah says there's a gravel company just south of his home.
Yes.
And you had said something about gravel, so yes,
it's another place to look.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for mentioning that. And all right, well, there we have it. So I'm glad you guys were here to just give an update on this, and then any other news comes out, we will be back online talking about the charts. So thanks, everybody. And next time, I think we're going to be doing some lives this week. So check out the channel when you can. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good one, guys.
And any cases that you want us to cover, put them in the comments. We'd be glad to look at them with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Nice to see you.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.